hire the right candidates fast. Try ZipRecruiter for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/talk. That's ZipRecruiter.com/talk.
Hello, everybody. This is Big Chuck. Let's take a look at your Weather Center forecast. Sun and clouds will mix today. Slight chance of a shower or thunderstorm this afternoon. The high today near 90 degrees. Overnight down to 68. Thursday, cloudy. Showers, thunderstorms are likely in the afternoon, and they could contain gusty winds. The high on Thursday, 85. Good morning, everybody. I am Big Chuck, old Mr. One Size Fits All. It's 9:26, and I am so glad to have you with me this morning on the Morning Marathon. And I've been telling you this morning I have a very special guest in the studio who's joining me right now. He just came in, and I want you to meet this guy. He's got a great story, and I'll give you just a little bit of a background here. As you know, I've talked about my daughter Katie and her husband Robert Duncan. And they live in Enterprise, Alabama. And, of course, you were all part of it when we had our first grandbaby, of course. Robert is he just got his wings and for being a Black Hawk pilot. I don't know a thing about a Black Hawk pilot. All I know about Black Hawks is a movie. And Robert is now going to be stationed in Hawaii for 3 years, he and Katie and my grandson Connor. And so they're making kind of like a grand tour of the country to visit with family. And he's visiting us this week before they go off to Hawaii. And so Katie is here and little Connor is here and Robert Duncan is here and he's in the studio with me this morning and I want you to meet him. Good morning, Robert. How you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you today?
I am doing just fine. Well, all right. As you know, you've been in it for a couple days. I've had so many questions because you're so far away and I've been waiting to ask you these questions. I thought I'd share these with my listeners too. So Robert, as you can tell by his accent, is from the South. I don't think that's a big surprise. And they live in Alabama. He's got Georgia roots. And let's just get right into it, Robert. First of all, is your family, some of these questions obviously I know, but I want to share it with our listeners. Your family in the military, you got a military history?
Yes, sir, I do. I have a very substantial military history. My grandfather he did 20 plus years in the United States Army through Vietnam and Korea. My father also served through Desert Storm. And as far back as like my great-great-grandfather was in different militaries throughout the world. I do have some German ties also. Mm-hmm.
Do you are you the only one in active military in the family, or are your dad's retired? Your grandpa?
Yep. They're all out of the service now. I do believe I'm the only one. I don't think I've ever actually sat down and thought about that question before, but I do believe that I am the only one active duty serving at this time. Okay. Your dad, your grandfather, all of them Army or? Yes, sir. Everybody's been Army. We really haven't changed branches much.
What would they have said? What would your grandfather have said if you said, "I'm going in the Navy, Grandpa"?
I think he would have supported it. I threw around the idea of going to become a Marine there for a little while. Mm-hmm. They were pretty supportive of it. But as you said, aviation's kind of been my passion since I was a kid. I actually remember driving up to Washington, D.C. as a kid, a 12-hour drive with my mom and my sister and my dad. And, I was maybe 12, 13 years old, and I told them, hey, I want to be a pilot. And they all kind of, at that age, you're just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, you can do that. Mm-hmm. If everybody can do what they want. So I think aviation's always been in my blood, and the Army gave me the best option to be able to continue that.
Did you, was there a lapse, or were you right high school into Army?
No, sir. At 18, my father told me, he said, I want you to wait a couple years, be a kid, and so at 21, I was doing what every other 21 was doing, 21-year-old
We
was
don't
doing,
need to talk about that, by the way, on the air.
It was just having fun, and so at 22, I was driving home from work one day, and I saw a recruiting station, and I said, I think it's time. So I kind of pulled in and filled out the paperwork, and about 10 days later, I was standing at Fort Jackson at basic training saying, what in the world did I just
do? Yeah. All right, let me ask you a couple of things, because I don't know how it really works. You join the Army, and when you sign up Did you say to that guy, I'm really interested in flying, or not?
I did. I did. I went into the recruiting station and said, I'd really like to be part of aviation. At this time, it was the big surge into Iraq back in 2008. And there was a big push to get the jobs filled that were needed in the Army. And aviation wasn't really everybody wanted aviation, so there wasn't slots that were just sitting there. So the recruiter pushed me in doing a different job. Through work and just moving around, talking to different people. Within a year of being in the Army, I reclassed into becoming a non-rated crew member for Blackhawks, which is the person that sits in the back. You operate the machine guns, you load passengers, you do everything from the pilot seat back.
Okay, let's go to that point. When you were ready to, a year into the Army, and you're ready to make a decision to go into the aviation part of it, did you say, I want to be in aviation? And they would have said, all right, you're gonna fly a transport plane, or did you say, I'm really interested in the helicopters, let's do that?
Yeah, it was.
Did they give you flexibility?
They did. I went into what they call a career counselor's office, and I said, I'm really interested in becoming part of aviation, and they say, they print out the list of different jobs, and there's some tests that you have to take joining the military, and that test will actually tells the military what you're good at, what you're not so good at, where they should field you, basically. So they pulled it out, and they saw my scores, and they basically said, what job do you want? And 15 Tango was the name of the job, and it's a Blackhawk maintainer, mechanic, and that was the one that I really wanted. So the career counselor worked with me for a couple months and moved some stuff around, and I had a school date. So it just
Where are you at that point in your career? Geographically?
I was at Fort Gordon, Georgia, and after I took the school, they moved me up to Fort Eustis, Virginia, which is right there on Virginia Beach.
And that is where you learned your Blackhawk training?
That's where I learned how to become a mechanic on a Blackhawk. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So we and that's actually where me and Katie started dating, and
do you? So you're training to be a Blackhawk mechanic at Fort Eustis, always with your eye on the pilot seat?
Yes, sir. I did join. There's a program that the military has. It's called High School to Flight School. It's not so much or street to seat. I guess it's more preferred, or what they call it now. And I had talked to the recruiters about it, but at the time, again, with the surge, it was, these are the jobs that we need. So if you are wanting to join the Army, this is the jobs you're going to take. So that program still does exist. Going through flight school now, there was a lot of people that did use that program. So it's definitely a great thing out there. If you have an aviation type, you want to fly, you want to be a pilot, it's definitely something to get to your recruiting office and talk about.
Okay, so now you're in Blackhawk Mechanic Training School, Fort Eustis, Virginia, and from that point to today is 2 years. Is that a 2-year time bridge we're talking about right now?
No.
4 years.
That would have been 6 years ago.
6 years ago.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Because I left Fort Eustis, and that's when they gave me orders to go to Germany, and of course me and Katie were like, uh-oh, but.
Yeah.
So we went to Germany, and I worked as a mechanic.
What was the next step up after that?
Well, then I worked as a mechanic in Iraq for a year. When we came back, some flights, non-rated crew member, which is what I was at the time, flight spots opened up in flight companies, which are, so now not just working on them, I could also go fly in the back of them. I couldn't touch the controls or anything, but I could fly in the back of them. So I became what they called a crew chief. I did that in Germany for about a year, and then they saw how hard I was working and how much passion I had for the job, so they came to me and asked me if I wanted to be a flight instructor, which is somebody that teaches crew chiefs how to be a crew chief, basically. So I did that for about a year. Went to Afghanistan, and while in Afghanistan, again they came down and they said, you're real driven, you're real motivated. We would like to offer you this, what they call a standardization instructor. So that is a higher level of responsibility. You're basically teaching the people that teach people how to crew. And while there, I ran into a guy named CW5 Walton, a good friend of mine now. Kind of mentored me. asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, I really want to go to flight school. And he asked me, how far along are you with the process? Because the process it's a lengthy process. And I told him the truth. I said, I really haven't done much because it's been deployment, get ready to deploy, deployment, get ready to deploy. I just haven't had the time. And with great support from Katie and Mr. Walton, long nights and early mornings of writing and rewriting and, having to take different tests and get letters of recommendation from people that work above me that I worked for, basically. So Mr. Walton kind of took me under his wing and told me that he would help me do everything he possibly could to get in. And once we got back from Afghanistan in 2012, we got back in April of 2012. I continued to work on the packet. I got it turned in November of 2012 is when me and Katie found out that, 2013 is when me and Katie found out that I had been selected for the warrant officer flight program for the United States Army.
That's great. All right, let's go to your two tours. Which one was first, Iraq?
Iraq was first.
All right, so you are in a combat zone in Iraq and in Afghanistan, and you are, at that point, you are a mechanic for Black Hawks.
Yes, sir.
What does it do to a Black Hawk helicopter when they come back after a mission and they've been out all day in 110 heat and sand? I mean, what is you think? Oh boy, here we go. Here comes another one.
Yeah, it's a lot of long hours trying to keep. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that aviation's a huge part of the battlefield. It changes the battlefield. It gets us moving faster than anybody else because helicopters can get you from point A to point B. And at the time, IEDs were a big thing over there, so you didn't want to be on the road. You wanted to be in the sky. So we were flying tons of hours, which put lots of wear and tear on the helicopters. The heat, the sand, the enemy, all that type of stuff. It puts big wear and tear on those helicopters. So they would come in and they would land after a 12-hour day, and for the next 12 hours, you were trying to get it fixed and patched up and get new things put in it and fix everything because between the 12 hours after it lands, it's probably going to go back out for another 12 hours. So it's there was 2 shifts of us, about 15 to 20 people per shift, and it was 24-hour operations. 7 days a week. Just
which one, in your opinion, was a more difficult scenario, Afghanistan or Iraq? From your position, from your job.
Yeah, I would say Afghanistan was difficult because of the flying part. It's very, Iraq was just hot and it was very flat and very sandy. Afghanistan is very mountainous.
People forget that that's not a desert country. No. That there are mountains there that are bigger than any we have in this country.
The southern part of Afghanistan is pretty flat, pretty deserty. But as you move up through the central and up to the north part of Iraq or Afghanistan, I apologize. It becomes a very treacherous mountainous terrain again, where helicopters are the only way that we could get up there and get people in and get people out. So we were flying it, and I would definitely say Afghanistan they both had their challenges, but Afghanistan definitely is the one that most pilots are like, okay, here we go. This is going to be an interesting year, to say the least.
Sure. Will you ever go back? I mean, I know that you don't have a decision. You're not part of the decision-making process on that, I don't think. But you were talking about a time frame that we all know in America as the surge, of course, and things were doubled and tripled and quadrupled over there. Do you think you will go back over there?
We still have forces over there, so I mean, it is definitely a possibility. Not so much in the next 3 years. Being in Hawaii, we have a different part of the world that we're worried about over there that we watch out for and make sure that is safe for Americans. But in 3 years, if they send me somewhere and that unit is slotted to go back, then yeah, I would definitely go back. So
how will that feel to go back, for example, to Afghanistan, not as a guy who's staying at the base waiting for the plane to come in, but the helicopter to come in, but bringing the helicopter in?
It's something that I wanted, so I look forward to the challenges. I look forward to I don't look forward to being away from home again, but that's part of the job. But I do look forward to the challenges of flying the helicopters over there and doing the missions. And there's not many jobs in the Army where you feel like you can make such a big difference as aviation. You have tons of jobs, and everybody's job is just as important. But when I was in Afghanistan as a non-rated crew member before, I did leave the FOB. I did go pick up people. I was in the back. I protected the aircraft and everything. And you can see that smile on that guy's face that's been out there for 3 or 4 weeks, just not having a good time. And he sees that helicopter come in, and he's just like, okay, it's over. We're going back to post where it's relatively safe, and I can get hot food and a shower. And so I feel like it makes aviation makes such a big difference on the battlefield. You can change the battlefield so quickly with it that I look forward to being a bigger part of that.
When you during your training, the training, of course, my listeners know I went down a couple of times. We went to see you, and Katie said, "Oh, you're not going to be able to see Robert. He's in what was that period called?"
That was Warrant Officer Candidate School. Is when you guys were down there,
and he can't come home and he can't converse with us or anything. But they do let him go to church, so we'll go to church on Sunday and we'll see him. And I thought, boy, this will make anybody a churchgoer.
Yeah,
if that's the only time you can stick your head up.
Okay. So I got selected and we moved to Lower Alabama, to Fort Rucker, Alabama. That's the home of Army Aviation. That's where all my training went on for this portion. So we get there and I sign into what they call Warrant Officer Candidate School. Beforehand, I was an NCO, non-commissioned officer. So I had to become. You have to be an officer to fly. So I went to Warrant Officer Candidate School. It's either 5 or 7 weeks long, and it's very attention to detail. Very, they're giving you officer history lessons. You go to school, 8 hours a day, and then when you're not in school, you're, doing details and studying, because they do have written tests that you have to be able to pass that aren't the easiest in the world. And you spend a lot of time.
People forget that how much book learning there is, if you will. It's like, you got to pull the rudder over here to land and the rudder over here to go up and all that. But more of it was studying and classroom.
Yeah. So you finish Warrant Officer School, you go to what they call basic officer leadership course. Again, it's a book learning type thing. It's a couple weeks long for warrant officers, because most of us have prior military experience as a warrant officer, so they don't have to teach you a whole lot. You already understand a lot of how the Army works and stuff like that. So it's a little bit shorter of a course. Then you go to survival training. That's 3 weeks long. That's a good time. It's really good Army training. You get a lot out of it. You don't like it while it's going on, I can tell you that. So then you go into your flight training, and everybody starts off in what they call just basic flying skills. You start off in this thing called a TH-67. It's looks like if the wind blew too hard, the helicopter might fly over. Little helicopter, and you do that, and you learn how to pick it up, you learn how to set it down, you learn how to turn left, turn right, learn how to fly around, learn how to do a traffic pattern.
That must have been an incredible feeling the first time you pulled a rudder back and the skis of a helicopter left the ground for the first time with you in the seat.
It is a feeling like I've never been. My wife Katie's asked me multiple times, how does that feel? And I was like, it's something you just can't explain.
Yeah.
And it's a freedom feeling. I will, it's funny because as a non-rated crew member, you kind of sit in the back and you're like, hey man, why don't you figure out how to fly this thing? And you make fun of a lot of your pilots. Well, I will say this first day after trying to pick one up off the ground, I called a lot of my old pilots and I apologized. And I was like, I thought this was easy. It's definitely not easy. It's, it's kind of like, it's funny because most of your instructor pilots over there are Vietnam Air pilots now.
Sure.
They're civilians, they're retired, but they're there to teach. And, he's over there with, one finger on the controls and the helicopter's perfectly still. And, I'm over there like death grip on the cyclic and
thing is shaking.
Just yanking up on the collective as hard as I possibly can. And he's just looking at me laughing, and I just look like I'm in a washing machine. But, so they finally, about 50 hours later, they finally teach you how to actually fly one of those things. Then they throw you into instrument training. And I'll tell you what, it's a little unnerving being up in the sky in a little helicopter, and you can't see the ground, and you got this old guy next to you screaming at you because you can't follow one track on the line, and it's interesting.
Just for those just tuning in, we're talking to Robert Duncan. He is my son-in-law, married to my daughter Katie. Robert just graduated, got his wings from Black Hawk pilot school, now is being sent they're going to Hawaii for 3 years where he'll be stationed, and Robert's in the Northeast making the grand tour to say hello and goodbye to family members for a while. Brought Connor, the grandson, and Katie along with him, and I got talking with him the other day, and I thought, I don't know a thing about what you do. I mean, and frankly, he doesn't know what I do either, so don't tell him any secrets. So I thought I'll share my questions with him, with our audience. And one thing that's amazing to me, I looked it up, and it's if you can look around the studio where I work, I've got about $500 worth of equipment in front of me. Robert's helicopter, at the last we saw, according to a 2012 average U.S. procurement form, you are flying a $21.3 million piece of equipment. If I stay in this radio station till I'm 100, I will never see that kind of money. So you have quite a responsibility for a $20 million piece of money that my listeners and I have all helped pay for.
Yes, and we appreciate it. It's some of the best equipment.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome.
It is definitely it is some of the best equipment in the world. And it makes such a big difference. We do a lot of training with a lot of international forces and stuff like that, and everybody says the U.S. has the best of the best, and we take very good care of it. And it helps save a lot of lives. I mean, that's you can't put a cost on the life of somebody. So that $20 million, when we're out there doing medevac missions, and there's people in Afghanistan that need medical attention and they need it now. Would you rather be thrown in the back of the truck and you got to go over mountains for the next 6 hours, or in 10 minutes a medevac bird can be there with a combat medic or even a doctor on the back of it to take care of you and get you to where you need to go. Yeah.
A couple of basics. First of all, there's about 4,000 Black Hawks in the sky. What is the average crew size on the plane?
Yep.
On the bird.
The crew size is it depends on the mission and where it's at in the world, but I would say you always have 2 pilots up front, and you usually have 2 people in the back. Usually one's a crew chief or a door gunner, or a crew chief and a medic, or just that. The 2 pilots in the front never change. The people in the back will change depending on what the mission set that you guys are doing or what we are doing that day. Like I said, you may have a medic back there, you may have a door gunner, it's between 2 and 4 people.
Then in a predicted scenario, and you're back in Afghanistan in 3 years or whatever, and after being in Hawaii, which is not a combat zone, but you're in Hawaii at a post, is there anything different that you have to do as the pilot of a Black Hawk if you're going out to a hot area where there's combat, or you're going out to pick up supplies, or you're going on a medical transport mission? I mean, would you really be like, oh my God, this is combat, or are they all the same? It's you and the plane.
Well, as the Army, I mean, we always train as combat. I mean, even even being in Hawaii, I mean, I'm sure we'll be training just like it is in Afghanistan, or we have to be ready. The American people expect us to be ready to be able to deploy anywhere in the world and take care of whatever the issue is. So, we train every single day, just like it's at 10,000 feet in Afghanistan and with all the bad people in the world around you. So it does. There's still that initial shock and awe factor when you first get over there. The first time.
And the guy at the gunner behind you is firing. That makes it a little bit more real.
The first time that actually goes off, and it's going off for a reason, that instead of just hey, shoot that target over there, if it's actually going off to defend that aircraft.
You were in that experience?
Yep, I've done that. It's an adrenaline factor of, the Army expects you to be able to do your job. So we train as we fight, as the Army always says, and we're prepared for just about any situation. We have wonderful mountains in Colorado that a lot of Army aviators go there and spend a week, a year, and we fly very high altitudes to be prepared to do that. We have national training centers out in California that train us for the desert environment and how sandy and hot and everything like that. And we have, we are prepared, and we stay prepared to be able to do whatever the nation calls.
Have you been in a Black Hawk and have been hit?
Yes, sir.
You have?
Yes, sir. It's a significant emotional event, I guess is what they like to call that. But it's part of combat.
I have to tell folks, we got about 10 minutes left here. I have to tell folks Robert brought with him a video of part of his training, and it's pretty bizarre. It's pretty bizarre. It is the simulation of a helicopter that's gone down in water.
Yes, sir.
And maybe you can just expound on that a little bit.
So, a helicopter is made to be in the sky, as we all know. When it does not float very well. It's very not buoyant. And we had a few accidents with aviation throughout the services. I mean, you have to think the Navy flies these same helicopters, and they fly it over water all the time. So we've had a few incidences where the helicopters have gone down in water, and the people, God rest their souls, didn't make it because they didn't have the training to figure out how to get out of a helicopter.
When a helicopter hits the water, the only thing you can do is get out. You're not saving that helicopter.
No. But there's a lot of different things to it. Do you jump out as soon as it hits it? Well, that's probably not a good idea because there's still a lot of moving things above your head. So, the Army has taken it upon themselves to train us of what to do. And so at Fort Rucker, there's a very large swimming pool. And this contraption that they strap you in, it looks just like a helicopter on the inside. It's got all the working levers and handles and everything. And they make you put a pair of goggles on to where you can't see anything, and they drop you into this pool, and it spins a couple times, and you end up upside down and backwards, and you don't have oxygen.
You're just holding your breath.
Holding your breath, and it simulates. This is what it's going to be like, and you have to get out of the helicopter. I mean, it's a very controlled environment at Fort Rucker. They're not going to let anything too bad happen to you, but you don't want that first time of you trying to figure out how to get out of a helicopter in the water be when you don't have the safety divers there to pull you out. So,
as a pilot of a Black Hawk helicopter, what is removing combat from the equation? What is the most dangerous and most difficult situation you can find yourself in the helicopter with your plane and your crew? What is the most? Is it night? Is it rain? Is it?
The Army
what is it?
The Army has spent a lot of money to make a lot of those problems better for us. We're not regular commercial helicopter or airplane pilots where we fly really high, just kind of moving around across the sky. I mean, we fly very low, very fast. So I would say at night, flying low, flying fast, an area that you might not know. I mean, if we're asked to go anywhere, you may not know that area that well, but we have some awesome maps, and we can get on Google Earth now and see everything from that we need to see. But very fast, very very low at night in areas that we don't know, you can put yourself in a very bad situation very quickly. But as professional aviators, we train for that. I would like to say that we're ready, and the Army mitigates a lot of the risk. You always have one junior pilot with one senior pilot, and that senior pilot has been doing it a while, and he knows the steps to take. If it gets a little too uncomfortable and you're not quite sure what's going on, hey, if we're not in combat, you pop up a couple 100 feet, you slow down, and you say, okay, let's figure out what's going on.
Gotcha. All right, you're going to Hawaii. You're going to be stationed at Wheeler Air Force Base. Is that correct?
Wheeler Army Airfield.
Wheeler Army Airfield. Wheeler is a name that dates back to Pearl Harbor news.
Sir.
Do you have any idea what your day will be like being a Black Hawk pilot in Honolulu?
Hopefully a lot of fun. I'm looking kind of forward to that Top Gun scene where they're playing volleyball on the beach type thing.
I hope you get that. Yeah.
No. It'll consist of a lot of training. Just because we're home doesn't mean we're not training.
Right.
So it'll consist of a lot of training. For me, it'll consist of a lot of studying. I didn't realize it until I got into flight school. You think your pilots just kind of show up with their long hair and their big glasses and their cup of coffee and say, let's go flying today. But there's a lot of behind the scenes things, a lot of studying that I have to do. You have to know all your emergency procedures by heart without looking at anything. So as a junior aviator, I'll be doing a lot of studying, a lot of, trying to get to know the aircraft better and exactly how it operates.
Would you be called upon to do a sea rescue?
I could be.
Yeah.
I definitely could be. I won't be going to a medevac. I'll be going to what they call an air assault battalion, which is, movement of troops, movement of equipment.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they very well could.
Sure.
I do know out there in Hawaii they do deck landings with the Navy. They do a lot of over water, a lot of things that they call island hopping, which is trying to figure. They hand you a map and say, take us from point A to point B, and tell us how to get there without the use of GPS and stuff like that.
It's fascinating. The whole story is fascinating. Do you foresee in your 3 years in Hawaii you landing a Black Hawk on an aircraft carrier deck?
I probably. I would hope so. I hope I get the opportunity.
That's got to be cool.
Yeah, it's definitely. I'm looking forward to the Hawaii missions.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, that's Robert Duncan. He is my son-in-law, married to my daughter Katie, and like I said, he has just graduated from flight school and got his wings to fly Black Hawk helicopters, and just been assigned now. We were all hoping that you would get to Fort Drum. I was trying to tell him how beautiful the weather is.
For about 2 weeks a year, I understand it's beautiful up there.
But instead from Fort Drum, he's ending up in Honolulu. Some people get the tough breaks, Robert, thanks for coming by. Fascinating stories.
Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Yeah, my pleasure. And we'll keep you posted. Of course, they'll be leaving here in about 2 weeks. They're actually leaving up here in 2 days, but leaving the States in about 2 weeks on the 28th, I think he said, and they'll be in Hawaii. And I'll like to keep you posted because I've been doing this so many years. There's no secrets with my listeners, and you all know that. All right, I am Big Chuck. Thank you so much for tagging along. I do appreciate it. Let me hit you with the Weather Center forecast one more time. All right, gang? Sun and clouds will mix today with a slight chance of showers and thunderstorms this afternoon, and the high today about 90 degrees, a scorcher today. Overnight down to 70 is all, with showers and thunderstorms coming up tomorrow. For tomorrow, Thursday, cloudy, showers, thunderstorms, and some of those storms could have some pretty fierce winds in it. The high tomorrow, 85. You're listening to WCHN in Norwich, New York, WDOS in Oneonta, New York,